Hello, welcome to the review of the day. Now, as it happens, whenever I feel quite certain that I've located all my books and unpacked them all, inevitably in the storage cage or in a cupboard somewhere I will find a new bag or plastic tub full of books that has been there in waiting. And so it was with The Possessors by John Christopher. I unpacked this from a plastic tub that was mostly books from my mother. After she died, I packed away a lot of hers. And this, I'm pretty sure, is one of them. So it's an older book, as you can see. It shows clear signs of having been in second-hand shops. And it's not in great condition, but it's in pretty reasonable condition for all that. I really like the covers, which I'm not going to open too clearly, but they have this wonderful science fiction-y horror effect, which is exactly what this book is. On the back, Kingsley Amis in The Observer said, "Don't pick this up unless you have a free evening ahead," suggesting that you may not be able to put it down. And on the inside, there are various stamps, tokens and writing that suggest that my mother bought this in 1982, and there is an excellent chance that she bought it in London. I'm not quite sure where, but this is the second impression by Hodder and Stoutgen Limited from 1966. So, John Christopher, a few words about. He was born in the United Kingdom as under the name Samuel Ude in Lancashire in April 1922. He died apparently in 2012. As a boy, he was devoted to the newly emergent genre of science fiction, as the internet puts it. And when he started writing, he wrote a lot of science fiction and a lot of horror and a lot of things in between. The internet thinks he's mostly known for a work of speculative fiction called The Death of Grass, which is interesting. I've never heard of that. I'm 99% certain that I've never read it. I think he's mostly known these days in my generation plus 10 years, I suppose, for his Tripods trilogy. The Tripods trilogy was a children's to teenagers, as we were allowed to call them back then, series about basically the War of the Worlds type aliens appearing on Earth, enslaving everyone, and a small group of young protagonists fighting against that. That trilogy consists of The White Mountains, When the Pool of Fire, I think, and then maybe When the Tripods Came. I read all of them, reread all of them just a few years ago, and they are really, really good. I would have thought, besides that, his more famous book would have been Beyond the Burning Lands, another book that I would love to read again if I could get my hands on. I was actually quite lucky, I think, to find this one. So the cover is great. The author is known. John Christopher, by the way, was one of his primary pseudonyms, and he has a website with Sam Ude writing as John Christopher. It's called thestylepress.com. It's interesting. I haven't really started to delve into it. I just discovered it recently while I was starting to look into this book. So this is basically about a group of vacationers in the Swiss Alps in a skiing chalet, which was fun because I recently visited Switzerland last year. Thoroughly loved it. But it doesn't actually start there. It starts with the science fiction element. The Possessors refers to an alien race that inhabit intelligent beings. And at the beginning, the Possessors are on a planet. It's quite clearly not our planet. That's made quite clear. And they inhabit a race of possessed. And all we know about them is that they are possessed. That is all that matters anymore, because the possessors inhabit their intelligence, control their body, and control their culture. Now, the planet of the possessed is about to be eradicated, and the possessors make them or ride them or program them, whatever, into building a whole heap of spheres that will enable their spores to distribute throughout the galaxy. The ecological R concept once again. Anyway, knowing that most will be eradicated, they'll end up in the hearts of suns or in nowhere at all, but hoping and expecting that one or two will reach somewhere where their race can continue. I guess we know where one of them ended up. Yes, so the way, after that small introduction, which gives us the science fiction and clearly the alien and clearly the horror element, we then switch to our narrator, Mr. Douglas Poole. He's an Englishman. He's arrived on the train and he's taken up to the chalet by George Hamilton, who's one of the two owners and hosts. Once we get there, we've got beautiful writing throughout. We've got that slow start of setting up the chalet and the surrounds and the people within it. And it might just have been the frame of mind I was reading in, but I found them hard to keep track of. And by page 30, I just sort of gave up. We were stuck in a snowstorm. Everyone was wandering around inside, talking to each other. I ended up making a list of characters, since I couldn't keep them straight any other way. And after that, my reading progressed a fair bit better. We've got Mr. Douglas Poole, who is a solicitor, and he's not the narrator. The narrator is it second party or third party? Anyway, it's all told about, not by. It starts off with him, but then it moves around. So our primary protagonist moves between Mr. Poole, Mandy Hamilton, at one stage. Then there's two sisters who are there, Jane and Diana. There's another couple, Ruth and Leonard, who have got two boys with them, aged about 8 and about 10, and Elizabeth and Selby Granger. Selby is a surgeon, a plastic surgeon back in England. So the whole intro is all these different characters and setting them up, and the skiing element and the building. And after we've been introduced to all that, we've got them all stuck inside a snowstorm inside the building, which reminds me of that quote from Hitchcock. I couldn't find it today when I looked for it, that all you need to create a horror is a likable protagonist or protagonists in an isolated situation. And that is very much what John Christopher has done. In this very 1960s sort of way, I'd say this is far more horror than science fiction. There's the science fiction element, but it is only really there as the means by which the story is happening, not in itself the thing that's being explored. It's far more a mainstream horror than a speculative fiction or science fiction, in my personal opinion. Anyhow, they're isolated in the storm for a bit, and then the two boys go sledding. The younger boy finds a thing, touches it, and all our plot unfolds. There's not a lot that you can really spoiler with this one. It's more about the reading experience than what actually occurs. Obviously, it's the younger boy, Andy, who's been infected by this alien parasitic life form. And stuff happens. He appears to be dead, but then he isn't, and he's out on the hillside and everyone's looking for him. Whole heap of stuff, and it gets really tense, and different people are doing weird things. And then he comes back, and he's alive, only there's something a bit strange with him. Next thing we know, his mother's a bit strange as well. And shortly after that, people start to suspect what's happening. And basically, it's one of those isolated situations, individuals being picked off one by one in different ways. I liked it. I would probably give it a 3 out of 5 because I did enjoy it. At times, it was a bit slow. At times, the slow picking off relied more on your enjoyment of Christopher's writing than in the actual story. For most of this novel, I'd say at least 2/3, maybe 3/4. Christopher doesn't rely on that horror tactic of people behaving stupidly. I've never liked those books or those movies. I've always thought that if you can't create a story with people behaving sensibly, then or reasonably in some way or another, then you probably should be telling a different story. So here, our protagonists, for the most part, at least initially, don't do anything stupid. They do the sort of things that normal people would do. But these are normal people from the 60s. So it's dated in the sense that in the 2020s, I don't think you would find people reacting the same way. Sure, they're isolated. These days, there'd be some sort of emergency contact. They have no emergency contact at all. They're completely isolated. The doctor can't check with outside medicos to see if these symptoms that he's perceiving are in any way known or expected or something that's occurred in the Swiss Alps before. He has to hypothesize wildly of what might be happening, and he's primarily a plastic surgeon. He's not the sort of doctor that goes into deepest Africa or into the Caribbean to examine how zombieism happens. So he's quite mystified at times, but always quite sensible about that. You've got a range of characters, and John Christopher does a great job of creating these flawed, complex, yet interesting characters. He does less well with the children. The children are just kind of there to be a symbol of something. And the interactions between the people are really the one thing you're going to enjoy this novel for if you enjoy it. The concept of this creeping alien parasitic intelligence, it's good and it's well done, but it's not spectacularly done. And as I said, at times I found it, to be honest, a little bit dull. There were points when we were right into the everyone being picked off sort of thing that I actually found it quite easy to put this book down, far from, as Kingsley Amis suggests, sitting up all night to read it. I put it down quite easily and quite often. But it is beautifully written. It is a bit of fun. If you're fond of the horror genre and you particularly like classic or vintage horror, I think you would very much enjoy it. And you've got that horror fantasy tie-in. If you are one of those people who's searching out not well-known books, and I know there's a couple of people out there who like that, on Goodreads there are 254 ratings for this book and only 41 reviews, so it's probably a little bit more niche. Whatever anyone might say or think, I would imagine that this is not one of the ones by John Christopher that is stuck in other people's minds. Anyhow, thank you for watching. Another book down, more books to go. I did enjoy it. It was just very placid compared to the more exciting and more science fiction-y books that I've been reading recently. Anyway, thank you. Go away, read good books, have a great day.